Americans produce and the way actually industries produce globally has changed significantly. And we need to get that idea of this change. If I were an AP free response question writer, this would be the theme that I would pursue pretty much annually. There are so many different little economic pieces tied into this theme. There are so many things relevant to your world tied into this theme. There are so many different levels and forms of questions they can ask you. From how has it changed, to why are we choosing India to outsource our jobs to what makes Mexico irrelevant, location for some of our production stuff. So the little understandings within all of this are going to paint a pretty big picture of what's going on globally. I used a definition of Fordist from the book, I think it's from the book, and of post-Fordist, but really the yellow probably highlights a better way for you to understand it than the white. But the old style of production, in Americans, by Americans, for Americans, in a factory, mass-produced via assembly line is what we reference as Fordist. The Fordist production system is not commonly adhered to by most producers these days. Post-Fordist can be produced in many sites. Not all Nike shoes come from the same factory. In fact, they come from thousands of factories. You can find pieces of Nike shoe production in different factories. Virtually every single company today is an MNC. Who can remember what that one is? Multinational. Okay? Most adhere to a just-in-time production philosophy, meaning that they are not amassing huge inventories. They are making and delivering goods as needed. And then the last part about that is it is global in its scope. It is not something that the core does within the core any longer. So one of the first terminologies or conceptualizations of this reworking of the way our global economic and industrial world works is the way most major production companies have changed from Fordist to post-Fordist. Where does Fordist get its name? Henry Ford, right? And what did Henry Ford do? Kind of a trick question, because most folks say he invented the automobile. He is not responsible for the automobile engine, car, any other part. He figured out how to make them fast and cheap. And so in essence, he invented the assembly line system, which then became the way we did things from 1908 till 1978, when we began to outsource stuff. Okay? Questions on the terms Fordist and post-Fordist? Within this then is kind of a collection of terms and thought processes, but they're all focusing on the changes within our modern industrial production practice. All right? I should ask you this. I shouldn't ask you this. I'm going to ask you this. AP meeting tonight. So how many of you came to the meeting last year as scared little 8th graders wanting to know what AP was going to be like? How many of you came last year as confident 8th graders wanting to know what AP was going to be like? Did none of you come to the spring AP night last year? Not one of you.
What is AP?
So basically it's for people that have signed up for AP, and then the teachers introduce themselves and kind of give a precursor of what next year is going to look like. What should I tell them about AP Geo?
To not take it.
That is easier than
I mean,
people say
the
it is.
teacher is fine, but just
Fine.
Yeah.
That's
Miss Carlin knows I like you. We're good friends.
Talk about the phone.
Why would you not take it? Brett?
Because it's just stressful, because it's just stressful.
This is my easiest class, honestly.
Yeah, but some people get it more than other people. I don't get geography.
You
when it starts, I'm not
So that's all the advice I get, to tell them, don't take it?
No, you
knows.
tell them that it's easier than it's.
Okay, do you
than
know like
people make
an
it out to
AP
be.
teacher telling them to not take an AP class?
Nah, you don't need to know.
Anybody else have
That's
an
like that.
idea of what I should say?
Don't worry, they got this.
Say no.
It's a good introduction.
Tell them to actually like study their stuff.
Pay attention in class.
I don't do either of those things. Take notes.
Okay. So, thanks for the help, that was lots of wisdom. All right. If you don't get stressed about the test.
It's so much work. I just got the time for it.
Yeah, I give a lot of
I
homework.
know.
Yeah, but if you're not smart, you actually have to study.
Okay, let me continue with this. I would encourage you to listen through this conversation before you write, because you might need to write very, very, very little of it. You might need to write a lot of it. One of the realities that has happened since post-Fordism is an incredible change in the United States balance of trade. This is really focused on your own country's balance of trade, because we won't use it in context of every other country. But here's the deal. When a country exports something, which direction is money going? Going in, right? So our goods are leaving, but we are profiting off of money from foreign buyers. Does that sound true? When we import, laborers in other countries or industrial owners of other countries are profiting from US dollars, right? So if we want a healthy economy, do you think we want to export more or import more? Do we want goods going out and money coming in, or money going out and goods coming in?
Money coming in and goods going out.
For a healthy economy, we absolutely want money coming in. Okay? When money is going out, laborers in other countries are benefiting. All right? So we want money coming in. We want foreign buyers buying American stuff. So it tells you that exporting goods brings money in, importing goods sends money out. Economies grow through exporting. We benefit from cheap goods. We love buying things that aren't too expensive, okay? But we struggle economically when we import significantly more than we export. Just for fun, Google on your imported phone, U.S. balance of trade, or you could Google U.S. trade deficit and see what you get for statistics.
Sorry, just have to call this
Dylan?
Oh, I just have to call this is an important I buy here.
Dylan?
He won't sit by me because of you. What's the matter? I've heard Chinese people.
Dylan.
What?
Shoot, I closed that window.
Text me. Text me. That, sign it. DC.
No? Okay, that's US South.
But like I'm asking.
So how many people here actually don't want to study this?
Oh, okay, okay. So this is saying what is.
Okay, this is kind of fun. All right, I got a graph for you. You guys are gonna have to do the math, because this many zeros is bigger than my computation ability. 1992, okay? 1992, our trade deficit was about 40, this is in millions of dollars, so it was about 40,000 million. Is that right?
That doesn't even make, yeah.
Is that right?
No.
Yeah.
Because that'd be 100,000. Oh, yeah, that's 40,000.
40,000 million in 1992.
Otherwise known
So 40 trillion?
as, I think so,
Is 40,000 million 40 trillion?
because if you add 3 more zeros.
Or is it 40 billion?
No, yeah, that'd be 40 trillion. But we must make a lot of money
Okay?
exporting that.
Look at 2006. It was almost 750,000 trillion. 40 billion? Okay, so this is 40 billion. In 1992, we were buying $40 billion more goods made abroad than foreigners were buying American goods. In 2006, it was 750,000 million. What's that?
A lot of money lost.
Is that 7.5 trillion?
Yeah, that's. I think Google it, I don't know.
I don't know how to do math. You guys do it for a living right now.
I don't do it for a living, I just do it.
It's got to be more than 750 billion.
Yeah.
What's that?
750 trillion?
Yeah,
Yes,
we spend a
so?
lot of money on that.
What kind of goods are?
Maybe it's 750.
Sophie asked your extra credit question of the day. Dylan, would you like extra credit?
Sure.
10 push-ups. No, I'm kidding. Here's how you're going to get your extra credit tonight. You are going to write a 10-page. No, I want you to go through the house and look at the tags on everything you can find.
Oh my god.
And list where 25 of the things in your house are made. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna give you,
How many points do you get extra credit?
Vietnam.
10?
Thailand.
not testing.
Look, Snapchat from TC Baseball.
Okay, listen. So, I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna encourage you to take this on in different ways. I would like one of you to do all shoes.
Me.
Okay, Riley's got
What's
shoes.
25 pairs of shoes?
Me.
I would like one of you to do all textiles, all clothes. Okay, there's a couple
Is it
of
gonna
you.
say where the shoes are from actually though? Or-
Take your shoes
It's
off
all
and look,
the time.
Riley.
I
Okay?
know that my shoes don't have like.
So have some volunteers do all clothes. I would like someone to stay in the genre of TVs, electronics, so your phones, your iPads, your computers, your televisions, your VCRs, and we'll do that. You might not get to 25, but, and then the rest of you just look at stuff.
Oh, the UK?
Look
Just
at,
the size.
shh, here's some ideas. The furniture, if you can find a tag. The appliances, like if there's your fridge might have a tag inside. Your cars, power tools. It will help as we continue this discussion around what is imported, what is exported, balance of trade, understanding the global transformation of stuff. For fun, fruits. If your fruits have labels on them, it'd be really cool to know how much of our fruit are imported. So,
I know.
yes.
AJ tells me that all the time.
No.
T,
Okay,
Tristan.
question?
Tristan.
That was a joke.
I sent you one.
Okay, do you have questions about that? Okay. Quiet. So,
Each last alcohol.
folks, somebody Google this, because I don't know the answer to this, but Google U.S. balance of trade 1970.
Oh, I already told that.
See what we were doing in 1970. My sense is that in 1970, we had a very, very, very favorable balance of trade.
Hey, we're supposed to be looking at it.
What our balance of trade was in 1970?
It says millions of dollars.
Okay, now,
We need to go to Taco
do you guys understand how the measurement of balance of trade works?
Yeah.
Exports are favorable. Imports are unfavorable.
So export favorable.
Yep. Okay, so what is causing this significant change from a domestic American production system to a global production system? Okay, so here are some influences that cause this. Copying this might not be the best. I'll try to help you bullet this in a manner that makes sense. Is our switch from Fordism to post-Fordism impacted by transportation changes?
Yeah.
How is transportation changing so that post-Fordism becomes the way? Cheaper, faster, more efficient? Okay, so make your first bullet that improved transportation leads to global production. That make sense? Improved transportation leads to global production. How does Weber play into the middle of that conversation about Fordist to post-Fordist? Caleb?
With labor costs, just three ideas of like the main cost saving thing that you could do.
Right.
And labor is now is the biggest variable. So that's why we're going with post-Fordism.
So Weber would say that we're now exploiting more cheap labor. We're minimizing the cost of labor more, something around that idea, right? So Weber would emphasize the idea of labor and its variation globally, leading to to post-Fordism. So I would probably say that in post-Fordist, Weber says labor will vary a lot globally. In post-Fordist world, Weber says labor will vary a lot globally. Okay, then time-space. Can you use time-space compression in a conversation about Fordism, post-Fordism? You get a free response question that says, what has contributed to the change from a Fordist production system to a post-Fordist production system? Could you make the argument that in a time-space compressed world, transportation and movement of goods is much cheaper, making that a cost that we can now take on to exploit global labor differences? Can you use time-space compression in a conversation about that? If I wrote the AP test, and if I were to predict one question that's going to be on it in the free response question, it is the change from Fordist to post-Fordist. Because this is the one thing they haven't addressed. It's a big deal. It's happening like crazy. It's affecting every bit of your future. So this post-Fordist transformation is a big deal. So in a free response question, can you use transportation? Can you use Weber? Can you use time-space compression in arguing against it? Or arguing why it is happening? What, Riles?
How do you use time-space compression?
What is time-space compression, Riles? Yes, you do.
No, I really don't.
Yes, you really do.
Is it the time it takes to get somewhere?
What's happening to the time it takes to get somewhere?
Is it the
know that.
No, that's
That's,
distance decay.
I don't know.
So time-space compression, to review, says that due to improved transportation and communication systems, our world seems smaller, more compressed. So you can talk about a time-space compressed world of improved transportation and diminished transportation costs leading to global production. Okay? Another important reason that post-Fordism is happening is regional trade agreements or global trade agreements. You could maybe just write trade agreements. Okay? How does NAFTA change things? Well, I need to show you this. NAFTA was supposed to be really, really great for our country. NAFTA was supposed to bring about this whole idea of America as a trade power. You know what year NAFTA was enacted? 1992. How's it worked?
We obviously didn't think it through very far.
There's some conditions of NAFTA when it was written that have not been upheld. Clinton was the one who signed this, okay? And in the agreement with Mexico, Mexico was supposed to put into place labor laws which brought up wages in Mexico. If Mexican wages were higher, would American companies be going to Mexico with the same degree? If Mexican wages are higher, would we be selling more goods in Mexico?
Oh, yes.
Should be, right? If Mexicans are wealthier, they should be buying American stuff, right? So if the part of the agreement that Mexico was going to build up its labor protections and such, I don't think this would be so sick in its reality. Well, there's a lot of good, you guys are really gonna have to think about this because you're gonna be voting in 4 years. And this is, I mean, one of the realities is should NAFTA continue? NAFTA's not the sole thing for this because your shoes weren't made in Mexico. Okay? But let me ask you this. Should we continue to have free trade with China when they have no pollution standards on the businesses producing there? So that every American company who wants to go there and destroy the environment and produce goods cheaply, should we have a free trade agreement with China if that's going to be the way they want to choose to let business happen there? Those many, many Americans, me included, believe in ending free trade because there are so many things about it that make it difficult for your country to compete in that stuff. But this is what you lose if you follow my desires. Cheap goods go away. Everything gets more expensive. And I don't know if that's a trade-off Americans want to incur in order to protect their production systems, their environment, their jobs. But anyway, I'm totally digressing. So back to the NAFTA thing. Free trade agreements. Why would NAFTA help create post-Fordism? Because it brings down foreign production costs as we can bring them into the country freely, encouraging more corporations to produce globally instead of domestically. I said a lot of big words, but did that make sense? Okay? In your free response question, could you talk about a global availability of energy sources? Do you think if you go to Mexico, you're going to have trouble getting oil or coal or gas or what is needed to run your company? Do you think Mexico has a developed enough infrastructure that you can get electricity to your plant? All of those realities are true. There's a reason, I'm going to show you something here. This is a map of export processing zones. Why not Africa?
Because Africa is developed.
Infrastructure, availability of energy sources, having power availability of plants, having plants that are empty and vacated. Okay, but we're gonna come back to this in a minute when we get to export processing.
Bully. What?
Okay.
Bully me. No, you're bullying Dylan.
It might be easier if you listen.
I am listening. I
Feel
don't know
threatened.
what
It was up.
I wrote it down, but I don't know what it means.
So what happened in the beginning is everything was made in America, by Americans, and for Americans.
Okay.
Our world now, Nike makes virtually none of its shoes in country. So it's a multinational corporation. And it has many, many production facilities, not one or two. It's producing globally, and it produces stuff at a rapid enough rate to get them out when needed, not mass production. So the whole idea of one big plant making everything for your company has gone away. Okay, and part of that is tied to cheap transportation globally, to cheap labor globally, to time-space compression connecting our world, and to free trade and to availability of energy. Why does it matter that the world is unevenly developed?
Because some places are cheaper to do stuff, and there are just many rules.
Got that? An undeveloped Mexico provides us cheap labor and limited pollution laws. An undeveloped Indonesia provides us cheap labor and cheap production laws. How many of you think you're going to find a lot of goods made in United Kingdom, Germany, France, or Japan? Well, Japan, yes. How many of you are going to find goods made in United Kingdom, France, or Germany at home? Probably not really, right? Why don't American companies make their goods in United Kingdom, France, or Germany?
They're more developed, not so fast developed.
Because they're developed and they have high labor costs and pollution laws. Without the uneven development, we would not be exploiting those crappy systems globally, so that we profit from that at a greater level. Okay? Then, well, here's time-space compression revisited. Did I get it well enough for you? Let me give you a second to read through that. If something doesn't make sense, let me know and I'll open it up again. All right. We did not define just-in-time delivery. One of the kind of significant changes of this is making stuff in smaller quantities as needed and distributing them quickly. Make just what they need for short-term production and ship quickly. Okay? So it's making what is needed and shipping quickly. Questions on just-in-time? Okay, and then, if you want to make this like a mini heading within what we're doing, and bullet out these terms, we're going to talk through them. Put specialized and special. All right, we're going to define both of those again quickly. All right, I'm going to freeze this and open up a couple of pictures that we're going to use for our conversation. Tell me when you have those terms.
Do we have to do the ones we already know?
You should list them in this portion of your notes. I don't really care if you define them or not. of shift gears, we're gonna come back to that. Have any of you seen the movie Captain Phillips?
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you
Come
some,
on, I can't. Let's do it
pictures.
over.
Okay, this is,
Oh, it's a ship.
okay, Captain Phillips is a movie about this ship being hijacked by Somali pirates. Okay? I'm not really interested in the Somali pirate story, but I'm really interested in this ship. Okay? So as you look at this, you can see that it's carrying containers of stuff, right? This is the part where the pirates board the ship and how they try to prevent them by spraying the water out. This is the image I want to freeze on for a moment. I'm going to hopefully use this to help you conceptualize a couple of different things within what we're doing in this section. So your first term on that list is entrepot, right? So let's say this ship left China and it sails to, and I'm making up these cities because they don't know if they have entrepôts or not, but it sails around the southern coast of India and it docks in Mumbai or Bombay. If it pulls into Bombay and it takes these 3 containers off of the ship and they go into India for trade, they might be charged a tariff. Make sense? But if Bombay is an entrepot, okay? If Bombay is an entrepot and it takes this line of 4 things off of the ship, leaves them in port and leaves, another ship comes into port and these 4 get put on the ship and leave the port, never go into India for purchase, and they are not taxed, then that is an entrepot. The entrepot is a port that allows goods to be moved from one carrying vessel to another without a tax. So it's not officially imported into the country. It's just carried through the port and exchanged. Questions?
Can you repeat that?
A port that allows goods to be transferred between carriers without paying a tariff. Did I say that clear enough? Does it make sense? Okay? Okay, in this set of terms, we also have the term break of bulk, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now let's imagine that this ship pulls into New York Harbor, all right? All of these gray ones, let's say every gray one on here, is from Nike in their Chinese and Indonesian factories, okay? When they get to New York Harbor, if all of these come off of the ship, and some of them are put onto railroads, because these cars go right onto railroads. If some of them are brought directly to warehouses and broken up into smaller units, and all of it is readied for further distribution. That is called the harbor is called a break of bulk point. So a break of bulk point is a place where cargo is repackaged and re-vesseled for further distribution. So it might end up in another ship, on a train, or in a semi. Repackaged and re-vesseled for further transportation. Does that definition make sense? Does that definition say what I described it as? Okay. Questions on break of bulk? Carrier efficiency asks, what two questions about transportation? Nope. How much does it cost? And how fast? So ideally, we would ship everything the next day, which probably requires it to be done in an airplane. Since airplanes cost more money to move and they don't have as much storage space, they are the most expensive. So then we downgrade and say, okay, let's bring it 2 days by ground, and then they throw it in a truck. For fun, track your next Amazon package. And it will update you where it is all the time. Have any of you ever done that? Track your Amazon package?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, also on your list is EPZs. These are a really big deal. We're going to get a little bit on it today. We're going to get really specific about Mexico's EPZs in a little bit. Not in a little bit, tomorrow. EPZ stands for what? Export processing zones. Okay? Which means goods are processed for export in that zone. I mean, the definition of the term is the term, if you know the meanings of that. So if you want a really meaningful full definition, it is a region in a country usually with limited regulations. That means limited taxes or limited pollution laws. So it's a region in a country, usually with limited regulations, where MNCs produce goods for export. Okay? Region in a country, usually with limited regulations, where MNCs produce goods for export.